No, connect to the computer.
Oh, sweet. Yep.
Okay. I don't know, Jason, how long you think we should wait for people?
I would say till like 7:05. I mean, since we're recording, I don't think you need to wait too long,
Okay,
but maybe
got it.
7:05.
Aye, got it. Will do. That's good. I'm gonna grab some water real quick. I will be right back. I have my
Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone. Abby will get us kicked off here in about 1 minute. But for those that don't know, last fall we did a Pac-U Invitational 6-week season where we had League of Legends, Overwatch, and Rocket League's teams from the Pac-12 playing each other. And Abby was hugely instrumental in making that happen, pulling together all the talent. We were broadcasting 5 Rocket League matches in a row. So you had casters, observers, producers, technical directors, um, and it was 3 nights in a row of multiple matches a night. League of Legends, 2 matches in a row. That's taking like 4 hours. So it was a pretty heavy production schedule for 6 weeks. And she taught me so much. I will forever be in her debt.
You are so sweet, Jason.
Uh,
You're so kind. Is anyone is mostly people Washington? Is it possible if people can put in chat what school they're from, just so for like my records, and then when we have a meeting next week, you can say kind of like what our percentage was of kind of where people are from. Okay, CU, UW, awesome.
yeah, and
UW, Oregon.
maybe rename yourselves as well with your school letters at the end of your
Oh,
name.
that would be great. That's a really smart idea.
That's what we did last week, and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could put, yeah, what your school acronyms would be. Mine would be USC, uh, UW, CU, whatever that is. But um, as Jason was saying, hello everyone and welcome to our casting bootcamp workshop dealing for the students of the PAC-U. My name is Ivy Sherlock. What's going to happen tonight is basically at USC, we've been doing kind of some streaming classes. Testing them out. So what I'm going to be doing is playing a recording of our lecture. And then I attended said lecture, and then I'll be answering questions. If you have any questions after the video, after the slideshow that's going to be going over kind of casting on talent. For me personally, I have done work for the Overwatch League, Vancouver Titans as their on-camera host. Supergirl Gamer Pro. I've been on the front page of Twitch multiple times for different organizations. So I've spent quite a lot of time in front of the camera. So Q&A session about maybe those experiences and how they relate to being a caster, being a host, and being talent and kind of what that goes through. I'm going to start playing. And then if you cannot hear the sound, please let me know ASAP. fun.
The fun is. A lot of the fun with this job.
Can y'all hear the sound? Did y'all hear?
Yes,
You heard
sounds
sound?
You're
Yeah.
good.
Who you work with and working with your casters, because you can have a lot of fun. You definitely over time will also build up like a friendship. The guys that you work with as casters, they'll be your friend. They end up being friends. Some of them lifelong friends. Some of my greatest friends in the industry came because we worked on a gig together at some point, and we stayed in touch. And that's, I think, one of the joys of being in this industry is that you get to work with a lot of cool people, and at the end of the day, we really all are just a bunch of gamers and geeks and nerds, whatever adjective you want to use. It's still, we all just enjoy having fun and doing our job. And obviously it shows when you create a product that looks like that. So today,
I wanted to say something. This is Kyler, who's most famously done work for Halo and Destiny series with Nerd Street Gamers, who I worked with before, and he was my broadcast producer. I forgot I didn't get to intro him. So this is the perspective. He is talking about talent and casters and hosts as a perspective of the producer, who is going to be taking care of that talent and guiding them along during a broadcast. So your technical producer, like Kyler, who's teaching, is the most vital person, honestly, a host can know, because that's where all of your info is going to come from.
today's topic, right? On air talent. Let's kind of figure out what that means, and we'll go over some of the real rudimentary steps. If you've never watched the stream before, who's who, what's what, we'll go over that today. Right. So who is on air talent, right? So usually this involves shoutcasters, which for traditional media, traditional sports, you usually will equate that to like your commentators, right? People that are the ones covering the action, that are giving you the by the minute, what's going on, why was that important, all those types of things. That's generally what in the esports world translated into shoutcasters. Now, with that though, we also have people, that we specialize, right? Not every shoutcaster is the same. I want to just double check. Yeah, I do have more, right? So some of them, they're play-by-play, right? You call the action as it happens. You're calling it out and just saying, a lot of times something crazy goes on, you want to call it, and it's almost as if you couldn't see anything, the play-by-play paints the picture for you, right? And we'll get into this more later on. Some people are color. And by color, we mean, you're that analogy comes through, and you're adding color to the broadcast, right? Where if it was just a guy talking and just saying, this is what happens, right? Like, imagine in a basketball game, right? He goes up, he makes a 3-point shot, misses the hoop. Oh, they rebounded, they got it, and it went in this time. Right? How boring would that sound, right? I mean, obviously that's a terrible play-by-play and in general, right? But think about now a color, right? You're looking at your job is to add, like, why was that so great, right? Like, in traditional sports, like, why is Steph Curry so crazy at making 3-point baskets, right? In esports terms, why was Faker the craziest player, we ever saw in the game of League of Legends? Things like that. You add color, you add tones, to the broadcast in times when it maybe isn't so easily to, there isn't so much action going on onto the screen, right? Next one, hybrid. We'll talk about this one more in depth later on. But basically, sometimes you're a bit of both. Sometimes you call the action, sometimes you give the analysis, and you flip flop. And obviously, solo is this one should be pretty self-explanatory. When you're by yourself, you're by yourself, and sometimes that's all you've got to work with, and you just run with it. On top of that, now for on-air talent and this umbrella that we call all on-air talent, there's also people that are there for your desk or your content segments, right? At times, not always will you have this. Not for every broadcast, this isn't always a thing that you'll have, but sometimes it helps, it adds to the broadcast to have people that can talk in the breaks, right? Talk during the in-between parts where nothing's going on and they want to break it down, or they want to talk about the match, or they want to talk about what's coming up, hype up the match, build up the match, or provide that, that analysis afterwards. And, there's some people involved in this, right? There's your host, your analysts, your interviewers, and I went too far. All right. And these guys are pretty self-explanatory, right? The host, or maybe not, but the host is basically the first person that says, they're the ones that runs the desk, right? If anytime you have a desk of people, your host is the guy that's directing the flow of the broadcast, right? And we'll get into this more a little bit later. Your analysts is the ones that are just there to provide their insight. These are your big brains, right? The guys that know the most, or there are maybe the most entertaining. They bring something to the table that adds to the broadcast, right? And then an interviewer sometimes is a very dedicated role. Usually, this is a person that can, is at a very experienced interviewer is a person that's good at drawing out good answers and drawing out emotion from whoever they're interviewing. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in the as we go on. I'm looking for my little thing. Chat. Sorry, I didn't pull up the chat just yet, just in case you guys wanted to throw anything at me. All right, so let's start diving into this in terms of casting. All right, so who are the shoutcasters and what do they do, right? So obviously, play-by-play, as the name describes, commentates the action. They call out the hype plays, and the most important thing, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, is that they're the ones that are supposed to be the ones directing the flow of the broadcast. So at any point when you have just two people, right? A play-by-play and a caller usually is your standard combination. It's the play-by-play's job to dictate what's how the flow of the broadcast goes, right? So at times this can be as simple as they're the ones that tells the that asks the caller the question mid broadcast, right? So like say a big play in Valorant happens. Let's switch the game up and go away from League for a little bit, right? Big play in Valorant comes out where it's like, all right, why did and the play-by-play can ask the caller in the break, like, I mean, we just saw a crazy round where they sent four agents down to a rush on A, and it's something that they don't normally do. I mean, do you think we'll see this again, caller? And then the caller is there to answer and be like, oh well, I think yes, because we saw this, we saw them do that, we saw blah 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 blah, and they'll give their analysis for the whole thing. But secretly, a good play-by-play will be the one that directs that without you realizing that they're the ones that kind of like set up their color, right? A lot of times they're the ones that big fight happens, go 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 go, everybody, big play, somebody dies or whatever the case might be, and then all of a sudden they go like, all right, now break it down, right? And they can play with this ebb and flow of emotion and volume and tempo very very well. And you'll see some of the best play-by-plays in the game and some of the best shoutcasters in the game know how to do this extremely effectively, where they can rise and fall, and they can go off tangent and bring it back very skillfully without you ever feeling like they did something on purpose or that they missed a beat. And that's the mark of a really great play-by-play, is somebody that can do that with skill. And that's one thing to keep in mind. I believe that we were originally talking about this series as like if you're a producer or production, but I think because of what this is evolving into, we'll dive into it a little bit more of like, if you are a play-by-play caster, also don't get too caught up in being hype all the time, right? As a general tip, yes, hype is good, but you want to have variance in your broadcast. If you're up here the whole way all the time, it can get very tiring for an audience to hear you just slamming at them the whole way, just going, a million miles an hour, or just screaming at the top of your lungs. It can get very exhausting for an audience to hear that constantly through your whole broadcast. You want to have a good mix of, hype and then bring it back down and whatever the case might be. Because on the flip side, although I think this is the thing that everyone tries to avoid, you don't want to be the play-by-play that's very mellow all the time, right? If you stay low all the time, well, then obviously you're going to put the audience to sleep. So you want to make sure you have a good balance of up and down and up and down, because, or even just build. There's a great discussion that usually happens around the idea of building your broadcast, where you can start off, around here, and as things go on, right, big play or a couple big plays, all right, bring it back down. Now big play goes back down, big play goes back down, and then all of a sudden game ending play is up here, and that's when you're at your craziest. That's when you're at your most hype. And it's because of the idea that as shoutcasters, you're here to tell the story. You're here to develop the storyline. You're there to provide context, because otherwise, without if it basically comes down to, would it be better to watch the broadcast without you or with you, with your commentary or without? And if the answer is, it might just be better if we just turned you off and we just let the gameplay roll, then you're not, you're not doing your job. You want to add value. You want to tell a story. You want to, emphasize different things about what's going on screen, so that the audience, either A, if they didn't know, now they know, or B, it can elevate the broadcast experience for them. Right. Moving on, let's talk about color now, because color is also a big part of this. Color is, your hand in hand, where you need to be able to pick up off of whatever your play-by-play is giving you, or you need to make them follow your lead. Right. There's really a lot of nuances with play-by-play and color, but basically, right, your color is what you're giving the depth to the broadcast. Right. Tell the audience about something that they don't know, they don't already know. Right. Tell the audience about why this particular item, this particular gun, this particular build, or this particular play style is being used right now versus something else, versus what was popular a year ago, what was popular a week ago, what was popular yesterday even. Right. You have a lot of times the color is viewed as kind of like the big brain, the analyst that's live on broadcast, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. you know you'll see it here on the slide, right? Can be used for strategic deep dives or comedic relief. Some of the best colors that I've ever got a chance to work with are the ones that can learn how to take a joke from the play-by-play and just run with it, and just absolutely get a laugh and a rise out of the audience. Because sometimes, yeah, okay, sure, you could be talking about the action and you could be talking about what's on screen, but remember what we said about earlier. Your goal is to add value to the broadcast, and colors, this is truly the field where you can really take it a bunch of different ways. A lot of people, yes, like to look at analysis and like to look at why was this play so good, or why was that play so bad, or what should this team do next, and what should the other team do to counter it. And yes, those are great conversations to have, and those are great topics that you can cover as a color. But don't forget that at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, what do you expect out of your audience, right? For those of you that watch LCS and for those of you that watch League of Legends, some of the NA color casters, some of the most fun to watch, because they're at times just willing to scream at people for no reason. One of the clips that just came across my feed recently, for those of you who don't know, is a guy by the name of Kobe. Kobe, it's Kobe is how you spell his thing is spelled. And one of his clips is him just going, Jensen, like, why do you do this? And it's funny because you watch the clip, and if you're not paying attention and you're just like, oh, what happened, what's going on, like, colors can have a lot of fun. You can do things and really just kind of like go wherever you think will make it, will give your audience a better experience. It would be the overarching term of all of this, right? The goal of it is that, yes, the play-by-play is the one commentating the action. Yes, they're the ones directing the flow. But hey, you as a color, you have a say too. That's why it's a partnership. That's why most times when there's a dual cast, your job is to kind of, I want to say, like, play off of each other, right? Play-by-play comes off of a huge team fight and they've got a lot of hype, and then color comes right in, picks up that hype, and they talk about the action, and then as they're kind of like winding it down, they'll bring it back to a reasonable pace. You want to match the level of what each other is giving you. Some colors, they love to do the mid-team fight. Oh, this, that, over there, look here, like just as a way to direct attention. And by all means, don't shy away from that, right? Sometimes, especially in League of Legends, you'll hear colors call out very important cooldowns, right? Like ultimates, as you call it, or even Overwatch as well, right? League of Legends, Shockwave. If you've played League, you'll know what that means. Grav, huge Grav, right? If you're an Overwatch player, you'll know what that means, right? Things like that. Pulse bomb, big, I don't know, EM, self-destruct in the backline. I'm just throwing out terms at you guys, and if you play those games, you'll kind of know what's going on. And that's the goal. That's the part. That's where colors can add into the play-by-play, where you just throw things out, and it's up to the play-by-play. They'll either pick up or they can jump out, and that's where you have options, and that's where it's a lot of fun. Whereas as you work with different casters, you'll learn different people's styles, and you'll learn different things, and that's where it can be a lot of fun, honestly, as a caster. And then if you're a seasoned duo, you can do a lot more crazy, a lot more interesting things, and you get more clean with your transitions and your pickups and your jokes or your comedy or whatever the case might be, your storytelling even. Those are things that definitely helps out. All right. Now moving on, hybrid. This is usually where the lines get a little blurred. And a lot of times you'll find this in shooters or high action games. So when I say shooters, not necessarily Overwatch, because I know although Overwatch, yes, is deemed as a shooter, Overwatch kind of plays a little bit more like a MOBA. But like in games like CS:GO, in games like Valorant, in games like Call of Duty, where action is constantly happening, constantly. There isn't, and I say constantly as in like every 10 seconds somebody dies, right? Games like that, it's hard to just be play by player color because there's always action. There's always things that could be going on. There's ways that you can really mix and match it. Or when you don't know when the action is going to hit, like your tactical shooters like Valorant or CS:GO, sometimes you just need to be ready to take the play and run with it. Sometimes the 3K happens in the blink of an eye and you just need to call it, or you need to be ready at it. And this is where it gets a little bit more. Some people find this a little more fun. Some people want to stick to more of the traditional play-by-play color roles. But it just depends on your personality and who you are, and who you are as a caster, how confident you are. But really, it's a lot of fun to just, this is where like Call of Duty games, especially, you'll see this a lot where it's more of a back and forth, a true back and forth, where one guy says his piece, the next guy jumps in. And whether or not that piece was play-by-play analysis or whatever the case might be, you'll jump around a lot. And it's just knowing how to work with that and just being prepared to listen in for that. And that's really where the fun of this is. Now, if you're a producer and you have no interest in casting, I'm sure you're thinking, great, this is all good information, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. I get it. They're casters, yada, yada, yada. But truly, producers, you should be paying attention to this as well, because a lot of times, if you work with a newer caster, they will look to you as the producer for advice, or they'll look to you because you're the one that's listening to them the whole time, right? During the cast, they're trying to figure out, they're trying to do it on the fly, right? They're trying to build the airplane in midair as they're going, because you gotta, a cast will always evolve as the game progresses. So you as the producer, you're the one that's listening. That most of the time, you'll be listening to what they're saying, how they're saying it, and all that. And you really do need to tune into it, because you can give input. You can tell them, hey, look, this is coming up, or hey, look, big team fight coming out, or ultimate available for this guy, or so and so just bought an op. Now we're putting eyes on him. You're allowed to talk to your casters, and in the beginning, it might seem weird, it might seem odd, and I generally, for the most part, will tell you that 99% of the time, you probably won't be talking to them regularly on broadcast. But when they're off air, a lot of them will ask you, hey, how did that sound? And you should, as a producer, I feel like it is part of your job to understand what is a good cast and what isn't, because then it gives you a lot more weight and it gives you a lot more power to tell them, hey, I think you did this great. I would watch out for this, or just in general, right? It allows you to have some credibility into their field, where, yes, some of them are prima donnas. Yes, some of them will be like, no, I don't want to hear about it. I'm great, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, the ones that care, the ones that you will see go far, are the ones that are always looking to hear, no matter who it is, what could they have done better? What do you think they did well? What do you think they could have done better? And keep that in mind as a producer. Lastly, solo. I mean, like we said, this one is rough. It's usually the one-man army show. I've done a lot of these where, you as producers, if you can get good at casting, you can also pick up a lot of gigs for yourself by doing it like this. Recently I did a gig for the an Oceanic Valorant tournament, but I did it as a one-man show, where producing, observing, casting all at once. And it was a lot of fun because expectations weren't crazy high. Production value didn't need to be crazy high. But to date, it was one of the more lucrative events I've gotten to do, because hey, when you're a one-man show, you're a one-man show. You don't gotta pay anybody else, man. And if you can put it out and you can get a product out there that people like, money's there. That's all I'm saying. I mean, that's just my expertise. That's just where I've been. I mean, not everyone obviously has the knack, has the ability, has the experience to do it. But if you can get to this point, you can have a lot of fun just solo casting. That's how I'm trying to be. Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of fun, trust me. Because then too, you're not telling anybody when you're switching camera. You're the one switching camera. And you're not waiting to see what the observer jumped you to, because you're the observer and you know which person you're jumping to, which angle you're jumping to. You know what story you want to tell. And honestly, that can lead to some really great storylines, especially in a game where observing comes into play. You can tell the storyline as you see fit, not as what the observer is giving you, not as what the producer is giving you. So keep that in mind. Solo casting, very hard, very, very technically difficult, can be a lot of fun. And there are some people that I think are great solo casters that are better than they would have been even as dual caster. All right, let's talk about the desk, because this is where a lot of variance comes into play now. How people run their desk and what they do. So let's start off with the host, right? Your host is the guy that runs the desk. They are in charge. It is very clear that they are the ones in charge, right? And usually speaking, this is your person with the most charisma on the desk. Their job is less about knowing what the answers are and more about what questions should I be asking, right? You don't necessarily need to be the most in-depth person for your game to be a host for a desk, right? We saw this actually in 2020 for the League of Legends World Championships, where they brought in, I forget his name because he's not a regular league caster. Actually, you know what? I will look this up in a second as I talk about this. But you can bring in people from outside your game and share and see, what they are. You just have to have examples. I have a feeling Abby just linked a video of her own hosting. Maybe, I don't know. I'll look it up. Hold on. But all right, but the goal of a good host is that you are trying to get the most out of your analysts, right? You are trying to get people to talk about things. You are trying to get people to give you answers in a way that you can get more out of it. His name was Machine. His name was Machine. Machine was a guy who's not a League of Legends caster or host or anything. He's probably done some, but he's not normally on that tier of a broadcast. He got a job doing the World Championships because he has high charisma, high energy, you know. But yeah, so in general, right, a good host knows how to get answers out of there, or get content more specifically out of their analysts. Doesn't have to be great answers. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to have the best, like, it doesn't have to always be super analytical, like what was the minute by minute reason why they did this play. Although, yes, those are great. Sometimes the best ones are just, let's throw a question out there and just put people on the spot, make them take a stand. Which team is winning this series and why? Go. That's always a fun one. And you make them take a stand. And if you don't like their answer, you tell them, no. You give me an answer. You take a stand. You pick a side. And that's a lot of the fun of being a host. You get to toy with your analysts. You get to have a lot of fun with them. You get to crack jokes. You get to have fun. Because at the end of the day, an analyst desk, whatever you want to call it, is there for content. It's there to keep the audience engaged so that they don't just tune away. They don't just click out. They don't just go to another thing, right? Or it's there, it's there to provide context or content, right? Sometimes you want to provide context to the matchup because, hey, maybe not everyone has watched the opening group stage qualifiers to your tournament, and you want to highlight who are the people to watch. Why are they important? Why do we think these teams are going to win? And you want to go over that. And the host is the one that facilitates that discussion. Now, if the host is the one asking the question, your analysts are the one answering the questions. All right. They mostly are, like I said, they're your big brains. Similar to a color caster, a lot of times analysts are color casters, by the way. Keep that in mind. There's sometimes where analysts just are that good they are that analytical in their game that they don't necessarily cast, but they're well respected to be that kind of brain about whatever the game is. And that's where analysts come in, right? Again, I'll plug this here. They don't always have to be the big brain. You can just have people on the desk for content, and that is okay. Sometimes you bring on hosts or you bring on analysts because they're hilarious. And it happens. You can have guest appearances on the desk for this exact reason. People who might not be the normal big brain, like, well, you see, I know about these things because these reasons. You can just have people on the desk because they're funny and they know the insides, or they know the insights into the teams that are playing, or whatever the case might be going on. You know, the whole purpose of a desk, again, is for content or context, but most of the time that really just does boil down to content. You want to have something for the people to watch. Now, lastly, I'll get into this because yes, this could also fall into the host category, but truly interviewing is its own art, and we should, as people in this industry, you should respect that, right? Interviewers are designed for those one-on-one or maybe one-on-two talks between people, right? You, as a good interviewer, need to be able to read emotions. You need to read body language if you're in live environment or even online with a webcam. You need to read how the person is reacting to the questions you're asking, and then go from there, right? A good interviewer can get that emotion out of somebody and really get them to draw it out. You know what I mean? Traditionally, the one that I look to as some of the greatest interviews of all, one of the greatest interviews of all time. Go back and watch the interview from a player by the name of Dyrus when he retired. Watch his exit interview with this girl by the name of Shocks. Shocks, if you don't know that name, you haven't been in this industry very long, right? But Shocks is a pro, and she has so many awards to her name because of this, because she puts in the work to understand how to read a person, getting that emotion and understanding where is the soft point, where is the touchy point, where is the pressure point. And sometimes you poke at it and you see what comes back. Sometimes you ease up on it because maybe you don't want to go that far. But that's where the interviewer is somebody that needs to understand how that works. And you need to understand, you know, really what is going on. It gets a lot harder online because if all you have is audio, that's a little bit tougher. But based on the answers that your interviewee is giving you, you can honestly figure out a lot off of just, are they answering too short, or is that they're just their personality? Do they really want to tell you this answer, or are they holding back? You can tell a lot by how a person talks, and just going off of that. So really, really important as an interviewer, if you are given this role, to really try to understand that you are in the game of working with people, and it's not just staring at a screen and figuring out a video game. If you're an interviewer, you truly have to understand people. You'll keep that in mind. All right. So now let's bring the producers back into the conversation. I know, yes, all right. It's been a good half of the presentation about talking about casting and blah blah blah. All right, cool. Well, here's some things that you need to prep yourself with if you are a producer when you're ready to work with your talent. Number one, you need to understand what level they're at. Now, if you work with the same group of people all the time, this is great because you know what to expect. This is why, although I hate to get into this conversation, it is something that does need to be brought up. The whole idea of nepotism and favoritism, although yes, I'd love to tell you it doesn't happen in our industry. Unfortunately, like anything else, it does. Now, there is a big difference though between nepotism and favoritism and working with people because they're a known commodity, right? That's a big line. And this is where, for people that are newer or that are lower on the spectrum, a lot of them that feel like they're getting shafted or they're not getting the jobs that they want, even though they applied for it and blah blah blah, without the people that are always the ones to point at something else first before they really look at how good their casting is, right? You need to understand what the level, you as the producer need to understand what is the level of the broadcast you're looking at, and then therefore what is an appropriate amount of experience that you can match with that, right? So, for example, if you are going to do something that is like the national championship for whatever conference or whatever the case might be of a game, it is probably not the best idea to throw on a first-time caster into that broadcast. It doesn't matter. And I know collegiate, sometimes sometimes we do this. It doesn't matter if they're from the college that is playing. You, as a producer, you should not put that person in there because you are setting them up to fail and you're setting yourself up to look bad, right? You, if it's something brand new regular season, you're not expecting more than 10 people to watch the broadcast, by all means, throw somebody brand new into it. Let them have a go at it. Let them have fun with it. Let them try. And it's okay for them to fail because, hey, it was a low level broadcast. But if the stakes are high, I really hope that you as the producer are thinking about this in terms of which talent you choose so that you are not putting brand new people into a big scenario where you're expecting big viewership for them to get eaten alive by chat, right? In as you go up and higher, people are going to have opinions. That's the case. People think that professional casters are terrible and that they could do a better job. But and there's going to be people like that regardless of how good you are, where you are, what you do, right? People trash Golden Boy for his Valorant casting. One of the greatest guys to do it in this industry. He gets trash talk. Everyone gets trash talk as a caster. That happens, and you kind of just need to have thick skin around that. However, as the producer, you need to be planning for what is the scope, what is the stakes of this broadcast, and are we bringing on people that are appropriate for this? Now, you can always have higher, right? You can always have a better caster do a lower event. That's great, right? You don't always have to have intro level people doing intro level events. If for whatever reason, either they like you or they're free, or hey, maybe you're paying that money, then by all means, more experienced casters are totally fine to come and work back in the trenches, right? Where all the intro level work is. A lot of times, some people will do this just for fun because it's kind of like a pro bono, like giving back type of work. But you always want to make sure you understand what is the experience level of your casters. Now, to this end, reels and asking them, hey, do you have a clip of your casting previously, is a great way to gauge a caster's experience if you've never worked with them before. Now, here's where I'll go back to this because I know I threw this out there earlier. That whole nepotism and favoritism conversation comes to play because some people will feel like, oh, well, the same X number of people always get the same gigs from this same company or these same people or the same game or the same group. And the reason behind that, more often than not, is not because they were picked just because they're good friends with the person running the event or they're good friends with the producer. It's because they are a known quantity. They are a known product, right? As a caster, you are putting out a product. Keep that in mind. Anything. As a producer, no matter what, in this field, we're an entertainment industry. Remember that. You are putting out a product. Whether or not you see it that way is up to you. But at the end of the day, that's really what this is. And so because of that, when a producer or when a company is looking at, all right, this is our budget or this is how much we want to spend for our casters, who can we get? The very first names they're going to come get at are the names that they recognize, the names that have worked and that they know when I pay this guy this much money, this is the kind of broadcast I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to get, a person that can read out the sponsor ads cleanly and not like they're reading off of a script, or I know that I'm going to get a person that can banter, or I know that I'm going to get a person that if the break runs long, they can still fill content regardless of what gets thrown at them. That's why you'll see a lot of the same people, especially in the amateur and collegiate space, getting a lot of the same gigs, is because they are known commodities. And so that is where, although yes, sometimes it may suck for the guys trying to get into the game, it happens because, like this very first bullet point states, people understand the experience level of the caster that they're trying to work with. Now keep that in mind. All right. So now I'll throw this out there. Sometimes you will work with traditional talent, as in guys who you are used to working out of a studio, who are used to working with traditional sports. If you do anything in the line of any of the sports games like Madden, FIFA, 2K, there is a chance you will be working with people that are traditional talent, people that have worked on a regular broadcast, like TV broadcast before, and are not used to this whole esports thing. With that in mind, they will need help, technical help. Technical help is always important. Knowing how to give, sometimes it'll take that little bit extra time to set up their camera and set up their microphone and make sure that they're coming in cleanly. You want to make sure you're paying attention to that. Always, always, always talk to your casters before broadcast if you can. Sometimes somebody falls out and you only get 15 minutes to talk to them beforehand. That happens. But if you have a plan for an event that's like a week out, you best believe you better be talking to them at least a few days in advance as to, this is what I'm planning. This is how I'm planning on getting your camera. This is how I'm getting your audio. And if they don't ask you, you should be telling them and you should be talking to them. All right. Now, with that said, now everyone else, obviously, of course, we're assuming is from the world of esports and is going to be pretty much easier to work with in terms of cameras, audio. They probably know how to use Discord, and maybe they've worked with OBS Ninja before. All right, moving on. We'll talk about those later. Getting them data. All right, so with anything, when you're prepping for your casters, if you can give them data, great. If you don't have it on hand, it's okay. Work with what you got. A lot of times, you don't need to be the one to tell them what the stats mean and how they, and how they should use it. Give them it and let them run with it, right? So if you have the data of like, this is how this team stacked up against this other team in the matchup last time they played against each other, blah, blah, blah. Give them it. If they use it, great. If they don't, you won't always be able to, you can't control every aspect of what your casters say and do. So just have it. I would always go with the rule of thumb of have it available when it's possible, and then let them figure out what to do with it. Sponsor commitments. Let's talk about this for a second. Sponsors are important. Sponsors is what makes our industry profitable. Sponsors make you very happy. Sponsors is what makes us go from broke, passionate, college students just looking to do this to have fun or looking to do this to represent their school to, hey, we're making a little bit of money now. Hey, I can pay for dinner now because I got paid off of this broadcast today. Stuff like that. And obviously as you go up and as you get better and as you do it more, sometimes, yeah, the possibility is that you could do this as a job, part-time, full-time. It really just depends. Trying to be a freelance contractor like I am, it really is it is very stressful, I will tell you, where you are jumping around a lot and you're doing a lot of different broadcasts for a lot of different people. But if you can get that sweet gig with somebody that's a regular broadcast and you have a regular broadcast schedule, great. But always keep in mind, what are your sponsor commitments, right? You need to know, and these are the kind of questions that you need to ask them up front. What needs to be said? Do I need to be playing ads? Do we need to be doing live reads? And what is a live read, right? A live read is when a caster live on broadcast tells the audience about the sponsor or about the product, right? This can be as simple as, hey, go eat at X restaurant, or hey, this broadcast is brought to you by somebody, right? I don't know. There's so many different sponsors in our industry. You can see people are just jumping at the bit to try and be a part of esports right now. And so that's why just knowing what do they want out of you, and you at the very least need to meet that. Otherwise, if you don't make your sponsor happy and you don't communicate with your talent about what needs to be said, what needs to be done, this is a problem. Sometimes it is beneficial to have your casters at the meeting with the organizer or with the sponsor so that they can hear what the sponsor wants, and at least then they can either A, kind of like work that into their own wording, or B, they can get comfortable saying it the way the sponsor wants them to say it. You need to make sure that as the producer, you are setting your casters up to fulfill their sponsor commitments correctly, right? What needs to be said? How many times do they need to say it? And, at times, where do they need to say it? Making sure they're saying the name correctly. You'd think that wouldn't be a problem, but I've seen that where the caster said the sponsor's name wrong. And I got a text saying, excuse me, you say they said the name wrong. And then you got to be like, guys, please remember, it happens. Don't take this stuff for granted when you're working with a sponsor. Make sure everything is airtight, because if you don't and something comes back wrong, there is a chance Yeah, there is a chance that they will not want to work with you again, and there goes that money. There goes bye bye. It was fun, but we'll never work with you again. It happens sometimes. A lot of times, they'll be okay. A lot of them are pretty chill, but you need to make sure, if you can help it, make sure you get everything right up front. Make sure you plan this out. Pay extra attention when sponsors are involved. Oh, I had this. See, look, live reads and callouts. See, exactly. I forgot I had subpoints for that. But yeah, establish a call time. Establishing a call time is very important as a producer, and it is one of the first things that you do that signals to the casters, look, remember, I'm the captain now, right? Just remember, sometimes sometimes they'll adhere to it, sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll be late, sometimes they'll be a little late. It happens. Please, Abby, don't fire me for today. But anyways, it happens. These things happen. As long as you are in communication with them, it is fine. But generally speaking, this is where, if you're working with a person for the first time, it is helpful to establish a call time that's an hour before broadcast starts. If you've got good casters or you've worked with them before and you know how each other works, half an hour, 15 minutes is fine. But usually for me, I always will say at least half an hour before, so that we can mic check and I can camera check and everything. Because usually 15 minutes before live, I don't want to have anything else that we're doing. We are just watching the timer to go to live, because should anything break, your job then is to fix that in those last 15 minutes. If you are trying to do everything 15 minutes before broadcast goes live, you are going to cause yourself a lot of undue stress. Just set yourself a little bit more time. Tell people, hey, sorry, you have this is the commitment, whether you like it or not. I want you here by this time, and if they don't do it, okay, it happens. But you just remember that. You remember that, so that for the next gig, and their name comes up, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to work for you again, or I want to do this broadcast. You remember that, and you be like, but you showed up at 5 minutes till last time. Do I really want to work with you? You get this option. You have this privilege. So keep that in mind. Establish a call time, and although yes, be flexible in the moment when, because things happen. Try to get people to establish it. Yes, I did have a sub point for this too. Right, more experienced casters, they probably will need less time because they've been through it. Right, newer ones might need a little bit more time. Okay. If you are doing a complex workflow though, like let's say multi-producer, multi-observer, or multi-stream feeds, sometimes it might be beneficial to say we're meeting like an hour and a half before. When I did the Risen broadcast for Tier 2 and we were working it, we would meet like an hour and a half. The desk was ready an hour and a half before the actual game started, because they were going to go on air 30 minutes before. Sometimes this is required. Don't freak out. If you as a newer producer, if you're newer and you feel like I need time, don't feel bad about saying let's meet an hour and a half before. 2 hours is a little excessive. 2 hours, I would say, signals, do you really know what you're doing? But an hour and a half, if it's a really complex workflow, I can see it. I can see it being a thing. I wouldn't expect everyone to be there at that early, but it can happen. Maybe you have production there an hour and a half before and talent an hour before broadcast starts. Who knows? That's up to you. You can kind of play that one by ear as you get better with it. But I still think a rule of thumb, 30 minutes prior is usually pretty golden standard. And just stick to that. If you need more time, push it further. But that's up to you to figure out as a producer, as an intro producer. All right, let's talk about the technical stuff now. So we'll go through some of the boring, but maybe not so boring things, but really these are all kind of in the same wheelhouse. All right, when you're pulling feeds, camera feeds is the first question. This will not always be something that you can get because not every caster has a webcam, but there is possibilities. So Discord video in a pinch does work. Do I recommend this? No, it does work. If you have a lot of people too that you need to pull into, it is an option. It is not the best option, right? OBS Ninja is probably the best budget option that you're gonna get, and I will. There's a good chance that we'll run through this on Friday as well as how to use this tool. But OBS Ninja, this is the logo, by the way. Wait. This is the chance. This is the chance. Where's my pointer? Where's my pointer? Yeah, just because I haven't gotten to use it last time. This is the logo for OBS Ninja. That is all I needed to use the pointer for. I'm sorry. But anyways, they are a great tool. They're very easy to connect webcams, regular cameras, or even your phone to use as a camera. Very much recommend using it. I highly recommend learning its ins and outs, because in more complex workflows, there are tools now that allows you to have a director talkback audio channel to your broadcastees. There is ways you can run entire broadcasts off of Ninja now, which is pretty cool. The higher end option down here in the bottom right is Vmix Call. Majority of you probably won't use this right away, but I will say Vmix Call is a great tool because, one, people can send you their feeds, but two, you can not only send them a return feed of the program or whatever is live, but you can send them things like a multi-view of a bunch of different things, whether or not that's their cam and somebody else's cam and the preview and the program feed, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of tools and options you have with Vmix Call. And if, because I know a lot of you guys are lucky, you're in a high traffic area like California or like, you know, the Midwest or somewhere where you're close to a internet hub, you can do low latency options where you can get really clean video at very, very little delay between you and your caster. Which, I mean, even for me out in Hawaii, I'll tell you guys from experience, I only experience about a 1 second delay between what I see and what the casters see, but there's ways to get that lower, and that to me is pretty mind boggling that you can get feeds almost like that to people. All right, and lastly, Skype Zoom. We used to use Skype a lot before OBS came out. It is available. It is out there. Is it good? I don't think so. I put it on here because I feel like I have to, but it is a way to do these things. Now, Zoom for conferencing and seminars and stuff like that, great. You can use Zoom. You can record Zoom. You can use screen sharing of Zoom. It does work. It does work pretty well now. Uh, but for dedicated esports broadcasts, I would just use Ninja or Vmix. Um, I really don't see, like, Zoom is just another way of using like Discord video. Or you know what I mean, it's just your screen capturing something of another screen instead of it being like a dedicated source, and that's the part I don't like. So it's out there. Just know that these are some of the tools to at your disposal. In a pinch, use whatever you've got to, but ideally you want to use one of these, right? Audio feeds. So, although pretty self-explanatory, we'll run through it. Discord is very much like an industry standard. A lot of people do things off of Discord, which is great. It works out really well. You can use Ninja to not only pull a person's camera, but also their microphone. I did this a lot. I still do this sometimes when I want to not have to be in a Discord call with the casters, or if you need to be in multiple Discord calls. Using this with Ninja is a great way to make sure that their microphone is live only when their camera is live or when you program it to be live. Keep in mind with casters and talent, you need to make sure you are, and people get this wrong all the time, so don't feel bad if you mess this up, but their mics are on when they're supposed to be on, and their mics are off when they're supposed to be off. People get this wrong even at the professional tier 1 level. So it is okay if you mess up sometimes. But remember, you do not, like, I'd rather you mute somebody and them be just like on stream than the inverse, where they're supposed to be off mic and they say something and it goes to live and it's hot. You hot mic them when they weren't supposed to be hot. because you can get people in trouble like that. Because people, casters, when they think they're off air, sometimes they want to say, "Oh my God, that guy was trash." You can get them in trouble for that. And at the end of the day, although yes, they shouldn't have said that, or yes, they shouldn't have made whatever comment they made. You as the producer, you set them up. So keep that in mind, that when you're pulling audio feeds, you need to make sure you get it right. Make sure you're paying attention to this. This is the easiest thing to mess up on. People do it all the time, so make sure you pay attention. Vmix call, obviously, if it does all the video things I talked about, of course it does audio as well. Like I said, majority of you probably won't use Vmix call early on into this, but as you grow and as you get better, learning to use this tool and the things that they have at their disposal, it's great. And then lastly, TeamSpeak and VoIP. I know some producers that swear by TeamSpeak. It's up to you. I think it has its functions. It's great. And this is all those other VoIPs too that come into play, like Mumble, Ventrilo, right? If you know how to use them and you can get people to learn them, or you can bring your broadcast team onto it, great. It has a lot of tools built in that makes it. They obviously TeamSpeak has been around for so long because it's so great. If you can use it, great. If you know how to use it, great. I won't tell you not to use it. I personally don't use it as much as I probably should, but hey, that's a personal choice. With audio, it's more so about a personal choice. Discord quality is a little bit lower than all of these in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the frequency and the amount of bandwidth you can pull and all that kind of stuff. But for a vast majority of your viewer base, people aren't going to notice that, oh my God, they're not broadcasting like the upper band of the frequency. It's gonna come down to, can they understand what the guy is saying, and does it sound good? Yes or no, right? And yes, you can tell when a person is using a good mic versus a bad mic. Yes, you can kind of tell when somebody has a good audio routing and a bad audio routing, but unless you have an ear for it specifically, it's a lot harder to tell with which program you use. So that's why I would say, whichever one of these works for you, feel free to use it. It's not that big of a deal. All right, when you're live, see how I reiterated this? See how this is on your screen again? Always check the microphones. Before you go live, before you go break, always check. I already said my piece once, I'll say it again. You need to make sure as a producer you are doing this. I cannot emphasize this more. It is one of the most frustrating things to see, and is one of the most frustrating things to have happen to you, when you just have somebody talking on camera and all you see is them doing this. Wait, hold on. Oh, that happens and it sucks. You want to make sure you keep that in mind. Pay attention. Also, yes, so this is another thing. Give your casters a warning too when mics are hot before you go in, right? Sometimes it makes more sense to turn their mics on and then work on the transition. That's okay, but then you want to tell them that, right? So a lot of times what I'll say is, I'll say, all right, mics going hot in 3, 2, 1. Mics are hot, transitioning in 3, 2, 1, go, right? Or whatever the case might be. Tell them that their mics are live so that they know they're live. It always helps. Also, give them the heads up that, and then breaks are clear, check your thing, make sure that they're off, and then, all right, you're off. Heads up when going live. This one is really just about giving your casters like timetables. If you don't have a countdown on screen, just like, all right, we're gonna go to 5-minute break, or starting broadcast in 5 minutes. What I like to do usually is a 5-minute warning, 2-minute warning, and then like a 30-second warning, something along those lines. It just gives them an idea of like how much time they have left before they need to be ready to go. I wrote on the slide though, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 10 seconds. You can see sometimes these times are a little bit tricky, but I mean, I will say I give them a 30-second heads up, but the countdown from 10 always helps, or 5 if you don't catch it. But like, you know what I mean? The way, and I get memed for this among some of the casters that I've worked with, because for me, I'll always go, all right, Transitioning in 5, 4, 3, 2, stinging, and you're live. Because if there's a stinger transition, obviously you count down to when the stinger hits, but then you give it to them live when it's finished. And I get memed on that by some of the casters I work with, but at least I've never yet once had them when I did that not realize they were live. So keep that in mind. Here's a big tip. Remember, you are the producer. You are the one that runs the show. If you're a producer watching this, if you're a caster watching this, sorry about it, but at the end of the day, you are the producer. I think I have a sub point for this. Yes, you should be the one directing them when you want to break, when you want to do things, when you need to do an ad break and all of that. If you're working with experienced talent, maybe you don't need to do this as much, but I'll tell you right now, even at the higher levels, the producer, is the one that can direct the flow of the show. When they cut to break, when they cut to different scenes, when they cut to different data and other points. Do not get bullied into your talent telling you they want to watch a clip or do something and you're not ready. You tell them wait. And I've done that where I've told my casters we are not ready for break. Stall. And if they look like fools because they were the ones that just said, all right, and we'll be cutting right to a quick little break, blah, 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 and they don't leave the screen, that's not on you. If you weren't ready, you tell, but this is where, too, communication is key. Talking to your casters and making sure you understand, all right, after the game is done, I need about X amount of time to get ready, to get the break ready, or to get the highlight reel ready, or whatever the case might be. Please stall and give me time. Or, hey, as soon as the game is done, I'm waiting on you. Whenever you're ready, you let me know. Right? You can give them freedom, and it's okay. You can give your casters freedom as to how you want to cut to break and how they want to do things. But you guys, so long as it's communicated ahead of time. If it's not, you are the producer. You do not need to scramble just to make ends meet with them, right? Although yes, that is part of your job, and yes, this will happen. Yes, you will scramble. Just remember you have say. You have say in the matter, right? It's not always about what the casters want and what they see, right? And that's exactly what this point is. Um, yeah, talking about but like I said, talking about all this before you go live save you a lot of headache, a lot of confusion. The biggest thing is if you can have a run of show, great. If you don't, it's fine. Just make sure you just communicate effectively with everyone as to like this is what we want to do. This is what the plan is. And as long as you all are on the same page as to what the plan is, you can do a lot of different things. All right, finding talent, and we'll make this quick towards the end because really a lot of these are just, hey, look here. So, a lot of places there are Discord hubs for a lot of different places and games. If you are working for a very specific game, certain places are better to look than others, but a lot of them do exist, and really a lot of this is just asking around. Uh, for a lot of different games, not just Overwatch, but previously Broadcast GG was the hub for Overwatch. What Chopsky, Mushu, and I believe Mike. I don't know if his in-game name is quite appropriate to say as much these days. What those guys did originally, they did a lot of great work with BGG, and to this date, a lot of people post opportunities in Broadcast GG, just of like, hey, I need people for this. Hey, I'm looking for people for this. Whether it's paid, unpaid, whatever the case might be, Broadcast does a great job for producers, observers, casters, the like. Definitely recommend if you're not a part of this Discord server, get in there. If you're a League of Legends person, Excellency is starting to become a pretty good spot for intro level stuff. Jake Kelton and his team really put on a great show. They try to have a lot of fun with it, and although yes, you know, not everybody is the greatest in the field, they definitely are a place where a lot of intro level guys get their start. There's nothing wrong with that. I do think they do good work in that place. It's just, you know, there is something, not everything is perfect every time, but hey, that happens. And then obviously for whatever game that you're looking to play, if or looking to commentate or whatever, look for the Discord service for that game. You probably will find something. It doesn't have to be exactly, what exactly a broadcast dedicated server, but generally speaking, if you're just in a server that has people that play the game a lot, that talk about the game a lot, you'll probably find something, right? Twitter. Twitter is big. Twitter is big. If you are a producer or anybody that wants to work in esports, you probably should up your Twitter game, or at least be using your Twitter at some point. Have one at the very least. I cannot stress to you that there are a lot of opportunities that have came across my desk because of Twitter, because somebody posted somewhere, "Hey, I'm looking for this," and it got signal boosted, where a bunch of people retweeted, and it somehow made it up onto my timeline, or whatever the case might be. Twitter is a great way to brand yourself, market yourself, find gigs, find people for gigs, or find just in general. Social media exists for a reason. And especially in our industry, we see a lot of things happen on Twitter. I know Abby put the AO because I literally got this job, this gig, this speaking thing from Twitter. So if that's not an evidence enough to tell you guys, have a Twitter account and at least somewhat pay attention to it, I don't know. Utilize it. It's there for a reason, right? As a producer, when you're working with talent, always try to at least put their handles somewhere on the broadcast on your overlay. It's not hard. It's pretty common practice nowadays that you'll see caster name and caster social media handle, usually caster Twitter, right? It's not uncommon. It's just the accepted way to do things these days. And if the caster doesn't have a Twitter, you tell them, make one. I'm honest. I'll be honest. I've had a couple guys be like, "Oh, I don't have a Twitter." And I told them, "Great, make one right now so we can start getting you followers." Like, it helps. It's a big part of the game. And if you don't believe me, well, look at the guys that know how to market themselves and see what gigs they're doing. And then look at the guys that don't market themselves and see how many gigs they're doing. It makes a difference, both for casters and production, but less so for production. Producers, uh, it's rough. We don't always get a lot of credit, so try to get credit when you can. I think I have a point on that. But before I move on to that, a prospective talent, right? So when you're looking for people, you can post to Twitter looking for blank, looking for caster, looking for a host, looking for play-by-play, looking for color, looking for blah 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 for this event on this state. You don't always have to put the details. You don't always have to put pay. You don't always have to put things on there. But just putting it out there, Twitter can be a great way to tell you about a person, like what they're doing, what they're currently doing, what they previously did.
Hi. So we've lost some folks, but I wanted to say that I was basically Kyler talks a bit more about different places, about how resumes and reels look in hosting and in talent, which could be a little different since a hosting reel will be highlights, or a casting reel will be highlights of your past streams. And if you're like, I'm starting out, I don't know how that happens. If you're a streamer on Twitch, you can put that in the reel. If you're doing collegiate streams, you can put that in the reels. There's a lot of possibilities of what that potential first reel could look like. Yeah, so we've lost some people, but of the 4 people still left, that was like an hour and 5 minutes of just like feedback and Q&A about talent. Before I end for the night, does anyone have any questions? It's still here.
No, it was very well explained.
Awesome. Sweet. That makes me happy. Kind of getting the down low on all the different kinds of roles there are, because there are so many. And then what I think he gives a really good perspective of having the technical producer aspect. Brody. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to help. I'm glad it was informative. very educational of like as the producer's perspective of what they want. So when you're auditioning or when you're looking for work or doing screen tests, you kind of have what their perspective is. And if you know what your producer's perspective is, you're probably going to get the job more often than hosts who are very like in their own, or casters who are in their own bubble, because you already know what they're thinking, not just what the host's thinking. So you want to be the person that they want to hire again and again. And all of my work has come from referrals. And that is kind of how business works. Yeah, but I think that's it. Jason, is there anything you want to add? I know he said he was leaving at like 7:30. I don't know if it's like 40 minutes later. But I was going to stop recording and then upload this later for y'all. So stop.